Okay.
So we're here trying to not be human, I guess.
You know, I was reading the other night in Das Bod about the differences between the seeker, the aspirant,
Oh yeah, I'm just on that right now too.
and the accomplished one.
Uh,
And it was interesting that the aspirant, or you know, that you're the devotee, I guess you would call it.
uh,
They say, okay, this one has become one with themselves. They are having unbroken samadhi, all these sort of things. And basically it's talking about what we perceive as enlightenment. And the interesting thing was the only difference between the aspirant, the person who is experiencing all these things and starting to recognize themselves in a real sense, it says our doubts. The Siddha, or the accomplished one, it says has no doubt about these things. So it lists like all the things that we would consider like an enlightened person to be, you know, that you're one with yourself, your mind stops, you don't pay attention to worldly desires, all these things. And then it says, and the difference between the aspirant and the accomplished one is simply that the accomplished one has no doubt about this. So it's like, okay, you're experiencing yourself, you're having more time with yourself and this and that. And as long as you don't doubt that that's yourself and that that is actually you're knowing yourself in a real sense and that the world really is illusion and there is no doubt about that, then that's the same. Like the two are exactly the same, but incredibly different, because one is having experience of the self, is having experience of no mind, is having experience of samadhi and these sort of things.
mm.
The Siddha, or the accomplished one, is having the experience of all these, but without doubt. Like even when, for instance, body pressure may come, the accomplished one has no doubt about the fact that they are not body and that this is just a temporary thing, or that if there's a feeling coming that's clouding and a thought is coming, the accomplished one, or the Siddha, has absolutely no doubt about their formlessness, even though this thought may be breaking their no mind type feeling. So the only difference is the doubt.
Mm.
After you remove the doubts, then it's complete. Because yes, it may come and go as far as thoughts come in, or this feeling comes in, or something's happening, and my attention may go to that. But at the same time, there's a complete understanding that I am not body, I was not body, I'm not going to remain the body. So it's basically saying that the only difference between that aspirant and the accomplished one is that there is no doubt, even though there may be different atmospheres, you remain with your selfless self. And I think we were kind of talking about that last week about, you know, how to have your work life and remain with yourself. And this is saying that you can have your work life quite easily and nicely and remain with yourself, because it's the unbroken knowingness that I am not body, I was not body, I'm not going to remain the body. Except my selfless self, there's no God, no Brahman, no Paramatman, no master, nothing is there. Even though this something seems to be appearing in the moment, I do my job, I do my duties, I put myself for whatever is happening in that moment, and then it's finished, and I'm with my selfless self. It's not that I've lost my selfless self or even lost the feeling of that just die, just die. It's just that some clouds are coming as they do, and I pay no attention to that because I know I am not body, I was not body, I'm not going to remain the body. These experiences that are happening in the body base are absolutely illusion and have nothing to do with me. I just thought that was interesting.
It's not, it's like nothing sticks.
Correct. Well, you're never doubting yourself that, uh-oh, this thing is happening and maybe I'm not this presence. Maybe I am this body. Maybe, I go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, you got 6 months to live. And I sit there and I say, whoa, well, I haven't realized myself. But the realizing of myself is that there is nothing to realize, that I'm not body. So this thing that appears that the doctor is saying that this body is dying has nothing to do with me. And this is just known. And that's the difference between the accomplished and the aspirant. The accomplished just, I'm not body.
That's
Even
the
though my
conviction.
thoughts, yeah, the conviction.
Yeah.
Even though my thoughts may be about body or even the form-based illusion, but yet I'm not that. So the conviction is, that's it. I'm formless. That's the conviction. Now I live like that in each and every moment. In every moment, I'm formless. Everything that's happening is happening within me. And nothing's happening because I'm formless. So this form-based illusion that's appearing will disappear. Spirit clicked with the body and you said, I, along with I, an entire world is projected. And then there's a knowingness of I exist. And then I'm seeing from this wrong perception, I exist within this world. Well, now you know that you're formless. So even if you so-called get lost in thought, no, you're formless. These thoughts are appearing and they're disappearing. And perhaps for a moment, you allowed your attention to kind of wander off because illusion may be very enticing, but you're formless. This is always the conviction. Master has said, you are formless. Accept your selfless self. There's no God, no Brahman, no Paramatman, no master. We talked before about being within the meditation and sensing that presence or that just I, that essence, that I am. So now if you just touch that one time, oh, so that I am that. So I'm nothing other than that because there is nothing other than that. And that you are. So now something happens. Okay, this is seemingly happening, but I don't lose that I'm something. It's the idea of a creation of a doubter by having a doubt that creates the difference between the accomplished one and the aspirant.
And the difference is too that there's what do you call it? A credence given to the doubt. I mean, a doubting thought could arise, but if it's not given any credence, then it doesn't matter.
Correct. That's why Maharaj says thoughts are flowing, good thoughts and bad thoughts, which to accept, which not to accept are up to you.
Yeah.
Just like he talks about like a buffet. Somebody puts out a whole bunch of delicious dishes and some you may not like. So don't eat them. Others you do like, okay, eat them. That's it. But you're not so involved in it.
Yeah. So there's a vigilance required because a lot of times the giving a weight or energy to a thought is sort of automatic. So it's like one has to be vigilant for the that. I think that they asked Papaji that when he died, is like when should you be in it? And he said, till your dying day. The vigilance of recognizing when you are funding or fueling a untrue a thought, or a not even, just the thought that arises when you give it your what a credence, or give it weight, then that's what keeps it alive. Whereas if you don't, you just let it come and go, then. But it seems like there's an art to that, of because a million thoughts, they say you have 77,000 thoughts a day. So it's a lot of vigilance.
Well, but a lot of those thoughts are about things that are not, and see,
No.
any thought would be
Right.
identified as a personal something, a thought that really
Right.
needs thinking.
Right.
But
Yeah.
in that time, because this presence, when you remain with your selfless self, it's like a black hole that sucks in everything. It's just that. You remain with your selfless self. If you're in the middle of a day and your thoughts are going, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, just pause for a moment. Go back there with your selfless self. Because that's where Maharaj says there's no experience, no experiencer. No witness, no witnesser. No concepts. Nothing is there. It's not even blank because there's no experience of a blank, nor is there the intellectual understanding that there's something dissolving. It's just spacious nothingness. And it kills all thought. It's almost like if you had like molasses, and it slows everything to nothing. I mean, just nothing, nothing, nothing. So instead of trying to train yourself to look after your thoughts, or to try and, train your mind or whatever, it's best just to remain with your selfless self. And that, like I said, it is like a black hole that it pulls in all concepts, all ideas, all feeling of body. Nothing is there. And this is how Maharaj all the time points to no experience, no experiencer, no witness, no witnesser, because there's nothing. There is just selfless self. The inability to have any kind of, because you are truly formless, because formlessness, even as the concept of formlessness, won't make sense there, because there's nothing. You just are, and there you remain. And again, you will say, well, that's duality. You're using a body to recognize yourself. Well, that's the medium of the body. It's an instrument so that you can know yourself in a real sense. And knowing yourself in a real sense, there's no thought of chasing thoughts, or there's no thought flow. There's no identification, because there's nothing there. You can't even say you're beyond everything, because it's literally just a very deep presence that's too thick to see illusion. And there you remain. And you can do this quite nicely and quite naturally if you're, in a line, especially now the holiday season is coming. You might be in the mall shopping for, well, I don't know if we're even doing that now, because usually I shop online, but let's say you are in a mall and there are a lot of people around and it's very busy. You can just pause for just a moment and be there, and then start to move about, start to experience this form-based illusion formlessly, knowing that it's all appearing within your own self.
Yeah, it's like the appearance is for your enjoyment or something like that. That it's more like it's not taken as a must have or a must not have, but just an arising. Something is just arising in the field, like bubbles or something. And so it doesn't have the weight or significance. If you don't give it that, then it just kind of arises and just subsides because no thoughts last forever. They just come and go.
Well, there's no thought there. When you remain with your selfless self just in that moment, and you kind of just relax into yourself,
Yeah.
there's no thought. And yet, typing can occur, all these sort of things can occur, but it's channel surfing scenes, basically, that are not, because there's no feeling of being in body, because in order to feel like you're in body, you have to identify with some kind of thought of body and world. And there's not that, because there's nothing there. So there's no identification with anything, because there's not even the faculty to identify. There's just nothing. And
Yeah. It's like you could feel the breathing or the tingling or the body sensations, but you don't have to uh, identify it as mine. It's just something that's coming up. The physical sensations are there, but they're not identified with.
the physical sensations,
They almost don't get noticed.
they're not noticed at all, because there's no faculty to do this. There's no intellect that can sit there and process a sensation and say, what is this? Because there's nothing. There's just nothing. And you can be with your selfless self and go and have a microwave dinner and drink food or water or whatever and watch some TV but this, and the difference between the aspirant and the Siddha is the Siddha understands, or the accomplished one understands, that this is the reality. And it seems now I'm involved in some kind of something, but this is the reality. There's no witness, no witnesser, no experience, no experiencer, no mind, ego, intellect. There's no touch of body. There's nothing, just nothing.
But can't there be an experiencer? Can't there be an experience without an experiencer? In other words, there's breathing, but there's no one. There's no one breathing. It's just breathing, or it's just seeing. The five senses are just happening. They're not attached to an entity.
I would say they're much similar to digestion, where it may be going on, but you have no,
Yeah.
just like you eat the food, you swallow it, and then the food's gone. But it's not gone, it's in you doing its thing. And that's the way all sensations are, because they're not, they're quite secondary. There's no thought about them. There's
Right.
no thinking process, just like you were speaking about breathing. Unless you're concentrating on breathing and paying attention to breathing is going on quite naturally, and there's no need to think about this breathing. It's just kind of a background thing. And so this body and its movements become a background thing while you are just you are. There's no yeah, even trying to experience yourself, that idea, that concept dissolves because you're just here. There's nothing.
But there is awareness, right? Awareness of, if you focus the attention, you know that there's awareness of the body, or awareness of some ripple effects, or awareness of wind, or awareness of things like that that come up, but that's not personal. It's just,
You can have, I mean, like looking at the hand, okay, there's a hand there. But when you're with your selfless self and you're not experiencing this hand, there's no thought flow that says, this is my hand, this is my body, or that there isn't a my of anything. There's,
right. Yeah.
so, and currently this body is not outside. So yes, the wind, I'm sure you will feel the wind. It's just not, it's not anything that would take you away from paying attention to your own self. There's no, and even in this moment, it's stronger in this moment. Normally, because there's so much attention paid to this, as there's explanation of this and trying to explain this, then there's a deeper attention to the selfless self, which then is dissolving more and more in an everyday thing, like today at work. Yes, this is always here, but there is outward looking and typing and answering phones and such. But in this moment, and this is why the meditation is so important, to remain with your selfless self, just here, just because now paying attention to where this source, this, it's erasing, not even erasing, it's yeah, there's no experience, no experiencer, no thoughts, no mind, nothing's there. And it's not a scary nothing, because see, even scary is a concept that would have to go filtered through the mind ego intellect, and that mind ego intellect is not there. So there's no, yeah.
You can actually, you know, I was just noticing I was writing down a couple of words of what we were going over, and then but I was noticing also that I wasn't necessarily losing my sense of not being anything other than or not being the writing. I was just writing without being that. Whereas normally, often it seems like that I might be thinking of something while somebody's saying something. It's almost like it is almost like I'm doing two things at the same time. I'm being aware, but also the thoughts or the writing is going on inside that or besides that. It's like the presence can still be there, whereas sometimes I get drawn into believing there, since I think I'm not feeling the presence, but actually it's it's the words that are start forming around that and labeling the presence as being different in some way makes it feel that way. But
Yeah, the presence is always there. It's just your attention that's flitting here and there and
yes,
having other things, and the illusory layers on your presence seem more interesting than remaining with your selfless self.
yeah, that interesting. Yeah.
But the more you just deep dive, remain with your selfless self, these illusory layers, there's no way to interpret them. Yeah, there's no way to interpret it. There's no intellect there that tries to figure things out. It's just a very deep, like Maharaj says, you go deeper and deeper and deeper within your selfless self, and no witness, no witnesser, no experience, no experiencer, no thinker, no thoughts, no body, no mind, no ego, no intellect. Nothing is there.
It does almost feel like a type of happiness in a way.
But no interpretation of happiness, because the concept of happiness has to go through intellect and say, I know what happiness is.
Yeah, it's starting. You're starting to get interested in the word again.
This is just nothing. There's no, you can't put a label, because any label that you put would just be activating intellect to try and put a label. And then you'd be using your experiences through the body-based illusion, your body knowledge, so to speak, to try and put a label on this using the intellect. And that would just be taking you further and further away from remaining with your selfless self. You'd be building an illusory house on top of your formless presence.
Eating the apple of the tree of knowledge again.
See, just remaining with your selfless self. There's no, because I understand through the body, and as Maharaj says, the words we use to communicate. But the words are not necessary, because the more words that we talk about these things, or the more discussions, then the more the intellect is fed with concepts and ideas that it can try to piece together something to understand based on the body knowledge or based on the illusory experiences. And remaining with your selfless self, just die, just die. Not even just die, because just die, you use intellect to say, oh, what's just die? No, just here. Be with you always. Just, yeah.
I guess that's what they mean by die before you die, right?
Without the concept of dying, because with yourself, what is death?
Yeah, it's an empty concept, right?
Yeah, because in order to have a death, you'd have to have a birth. And even this is a concept, and again, the intellect tries to figure this out, but the concept of birth came along with the body, and you're not body. You just are. You're just. And there's no saying, oh, is this all there is? Because again, that brings in intellect and separates you from yourself through a concept of what is this? Or how is this? Even the concept of doubt doesn't make sense, because you have to, again, what is doubt? Where did I learn about doubt? The concept of doubt came along with the body. I just remain with my selfless self. No concepts. Nothing.
Yeah, even just I is a concept.
Yes, because it came along with the body. Prior to beingness, you didn't know just I.
Right. There was no I.
There was no anything. Just this.
And Kathleen was talking about vigilance, and it occurred to me that the mantra kind of provides that vigilance.
In the beginning, because in the beginning, as Maharaj says, all of these, you didn't get a mantra until you came along with the body and the body knowledge. So that body knowledge of mantra helps to erase this illusory layers slowly, silently, and permanently, so you can just be here. And then you're just with your selfless self. Because even as Maharaj says, if you're meditating, in this moment you sit and you're meditating to try and discover this presence, this just I, this I am. But here in this moment, that whole concept of meditation just dissolves, because there's no thought, there's no intellect, there's no labeling, there's no ability to sit there and say, what is meditation? Who's meditating? There's nothing. The meditation dissolves in this that you are. You remain.
Can I get a hallelujah?
Yeah, it's just I, but not in the beginning. Mantra erase the illusory layers. The illusory layers allow you to know yourself in a real sense, just a touch, and now you be with you always. Now that you know yourself, you be with yourself. Things are happening, coming and going, that's fine, you remain with yourself. Taking practice, okay, remain with yourself. Just like if you go to the gym, we talked about if you go and you start to pick up a 90-pound weight and you just start pumping iron, if you can do that, you're going to be sore like heck tomorrow. But the most nice thing is if you take a 10-pound weight and you start doing it, and then 15, and then 25, and you build up. And the same here, you remain with your selfless self. You remain more and more with your selfless self. And then this remaining dissolves, because there's no one there to remain with anything. There's no concept of separation. There's no duality, no witness, no witnesser, no experience, no experiencer. Just not even nothing. I can't even say nothing. That's the just here. And remain with your selfless self. Don't entertain thoughts. All this body knowledge of trying to figure out spirituality, or trying to put what you've heard or what your understanding is in a little spiritual box and say so-and-so agrees with this no, throw all that away. Because all these gurus, they were not. All these different masters is just this, your own selfless self. So don't get hung up on the words of masters, because you're a master. This masterly essence is within you. That's the master. That's not an egoistic statement. That is the reality.
read a interesting passage. Nisargadatta, he was asked, well, isn't the this presence or whatever mysterious? And Nisargadatta said, it's not mysterious. It's the appearances that are mysterious. I thought that was interesting. It's like, what? Where did that come from?
Well, guys, I'm afraid it's time.
Okay, no worries. Good, good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy
Thank you,
your
John.
Thanksgiving.
Happy
too.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving,
Okay, thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Have
Yeah.
a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.